Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. It is your host, Angelica, intuitive healer. And I'm so excited for you all to get into today's episode. It was probably one of my favorites of the year with Katie Silcox, who is the founder of Shakti School. This school is one of my favorite Ayurvedic schools, and it's the school that I primarily recommend for everyone who comes to me to receive their Ayurvedic education. And it's solely because of her and the amazing teachers that she attracts in her program. She just has such great, deep insight. And this podcast is nothing short of it. It came from this idea from our last podcast that we did together. We just lightly touched on romantic relationships and kind of where we're at in our culture. And it got us both lit up so much. We wanted to dive into it in a whole episode. So I'm going to get into what that is in a minute. But first, I want to give a little bit of an energy update. I also share these energy updates on my IG Live every week, usually Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then I also do individual card pulls at the end of those. So if you're not already following me on Instagram at Angelica_feminine_healer, do so and you can get a full energy update there. So we are out of a Mercury retrograde. Thank the Lord. For those who have strong Gemini and Virgo placements, you may have really felt this Mercury retrograde as uncomfortable conversations coming up to the surface, communication issues, tech issues, just slowdowns and obstacles in general. What was great about this Mercury retrograde is that it ended and coincided with the full moon in Gemini. And since Mercury rules Gemini, it was really highlighting that there's some type of clarity and insight coming forward about the communication issues that you may have experienced during this retrograde cycle. So something is being brought to light, the wool is being pulled away from the eyes, and you're able to truly see what is your next step forward. And it may have come in on that Sunday full moon in Gemini, and it may be illuminating more for you as this week progresses. Now, the sun will remain in Sagittarius until we have our winter equinox, our winter solstice on December 21st, when the sun officially moves into Capricorn. These equinoxes are definitive shifts where we are going more towards the light in the northern hemisphere. And although we are still going inward and having a lot of time for self-reflection, that extra little shift of going towards the light is going to be starting to take these nuggets of wisdom that we're learning from the self-reflection work that we're doing and starting to put them out into the world. I'll get a little bit more into the sun in Capricorn next week, but I do want to talk about Mars still being in retrograde, and he will be in retrograde until the end of February. This retrograde started on December 6th. Those who have strong Aries and Scorpio placements will feel this retrograde the most, and Mars rules forward action, motivation, and passion and effort. So although you may still feel impulsive for those who have strong Mars placements, the energy right now is not necessarily to act quickly on them, but to move so in a very intentional way. So during this retrograde period, more clarity is going to come on how you want to move forward in a way that's very heart-centered and it's very intentional. And through the end of February, you'll be kind of taking stock on this and really reflecting on that and how you want to move forward. So if you're getting slowdowns, if you are kind of feeling a tug of war between wanting to take action and then feeling kind of like, I don't really actually know what that next step forward is. It's okay. More clarity is going to come. And the best thing that I can recommend is to get really clear on what your heart's truest desires are. This Mars is retrograded in Leo, and Leo has to do with having a very strong, courageous heart and following your heart's desires. So there's something that's being clarified here on the direction that you really want to go in. And sometimes, because this Mars retrograde is almost like a trigger. So through discomfort is how we have to learn that's going to trigger us into going after what we actually want. Sometimes it has to put on such uncomfortable pressure in one area of our life to be like, okay, no, I can't accept this anymore. Even though I'm so afraid to go after what I really desire, I just have to do it because there's no way I can accept this level of discomfort anymore. And I need to break this cycle that I've been going through. So if you are being tested right now, it's not to diminish your power. It's only to strengthen your power, to build more courage, for you to step deeper into who you are and sharing your voice very loudly and confidently with the world. And I say that lightly because, I'm going through that Mars retrograde with you all as well. So those triggers can feel painful and uncomfortable. However, they are meant to transform into us stepping deeper into our power, us getting clear on what our true desires are, and just redirecting our path. That's what retrogrades are, to slow down, to redirect our energy. Okay, now for today's episode with Miss Katie Silcox. Katie Silcox is the founder of Shakti School, and she is a best-selling author of her book, Healthy, Happy, Sexy, Ayurvedic Wisdom for Modern Women. She is just a leading voice in the health and the wellness, the yoga and the Ayurveda world. And if you haven't listened to any podcast with her yet, I know you're going to fall in love with her because she just speaks to your soul. And I just love her wisdom. Like, it literally feels like balm for my heart when I'm in her presence. There's so much nurturance. There's so much truth. There's so much positive balance of divine feminine and masculine energy. And in this episode, we wanted to talk about relationships. I think that it just feels really relative to both of us right now. I'm in a time of my life where half of my friends are in relationships and building families, and then the other half are single like myself. And I think navigating the dating world and just relationships in general, our relationships is getting a whole makeover, along with a lot of other things in the world right now. But I truly think that relationships is such a thing that is changing right now, which is why people who are single are finding difficult navigating the dating world, and people who are in relationships and building families are having difficulty with communication. So first, in this episode, we define what a conscious relationship is. I think a lot of us, I know all of you who are listening to this podcast are on this conscious train of doing inner work, doing self-reflection, connecting deeper to your spirituality. So what does that look like when we're in relationship with other people? You know, I very much was on the train of like, gosh, I can never date anyone who's not like spiritual after being in this whole world. And now my definition of spirituality and consciousness has shifted. Doesn't feel as literal as what I thought it had to be in the past. So we define what that is. And then we go into, I asked the question, okay, it feels like women are all interested in a lot of these spiritual practices, and maybe this is my just little neck of the woods where I work with a lot of women and they're on this conscious train, and then it's kind of like, where are all the men? Like, is there truth to this, or are we not seeing that the way that men are evolving as well? And the way that we really talked about this is first just identifying physiologically men and women are different. So the way that we're going to operate, our thoughts and our actions and our behaviors are going to be different. And we need to allow for some, I want to say, openness to holding both as true, that you can be evolved and physiologically different, and it can come and it'll manifest in different ways. And then we talk about, what does it mean to have a healthy masculine? I think we live in a world of polarities, so we go from like one extreme to the next just so that we can find the middle ground. And I strongly believe, as you all know, a lot of my messaging is around getting in touch with your divine feminine essence again. I find that has been lacking in the past few years, and still a lot of the women clients that I get, that is what their soul is saying. Like, I need to connect to my divine feminine essence again. There's such a truth to that. However, I've also seen the scales tip to where they fear being in any type of masculine energy of, there is a healthy masculine of moving forward, putting forth effort, being really clear and direct. There is a benefit to having masculine energy, no matter what gender that you have. So we really define like what that healthy masculine is, and especially in relationship. You know, I started to realize I don't want a feminine partner. I want someone who's masculine, but it's very interesting that I think maybe my past relationships have mirrored a toxic masculinity. So I thought that maybe that's not what I wanted. But truly, if you are someone who identifies as a female and you're wanting to attract a masculine, more male-dominated partner, then it is important that you're able to define what those qualities actually are and differentiate it from that kind of lower vibrational qualities. And I think that's where the shift is happening right now. Like, we're shaking out a lot of like what we used to think was masculine and what we're actually setting the new standard for. And I think what's hard for at least single women, and what I've heard, is that it's hard for us to see this version of a healthy masculine because, you know, quite frankly, we definitely have leaders and people who are in high visibility who are showing a toxic masculinity. And I think that's such a mirror for the collective, for sure. But I have also seen a healthy masculine, and I love men just as I love women. And I think that there is a conversation that needs to be had around this and how we can really identify that and not just put blanketed terms across both genders. We also talk about our personal experiences, about, me living a single life, and then Katie being in a relationship. I think she's been in this relationship for the past 7 months. And it's so interesting because I love her relationship dynamic. Like, they're two opposite ends of the totem pole, but it's so cool to see how in this unique relationship, how she is learning and growing, evolving so much, as I'm sure he is as well. We only got her end of the story here. And it's so beautiful to see all these different variations of how a healthy masculine and feminine can manifest. And then one of the last things that we talked about was the narcissistic and empath relationship. This is just a dynamic that I've been seeing a lot coming up in my algorithm, but also just in my close friendships and relationships. I've noticed these dynamics, and we dive into all of it. I'm pausing there because there's a lot there that we could talk about. I think sometimes we get over-identified with certain labels. And then I also think that there's a spectrum of this as well, of being able to identify the difference between tendencies and someone who actually has an identity of an empath or a narcissist. And then how can we get out of the victimness of being in this type of relationship and really take accountability for our side of the street and actually move forward in healthy relationships. I don't necessarily think the medicine all the time is to leave that relationship and that person is bad. I think relationships are meant to test us beyond our wits, and truly a healthy relationship needs to completely die and be rebirthed. And that actually can feel like a full death for yourself, because in relationships, I think that we can become so close together as oneness that it feels like that. But the true health of a relationship is letting it die and rebirth, so that you can actually be in alignment with the vibration of love, which is dynamic, and it's going to constantly be changing. If love is not changing, it's not love. You're either living in the past of what it used to be, or you're living in the future of what you expect it to be and what its potential is. So we dive deeper way into this episode. I'm super excited for it. And I want to hear your thoughts. If you're single, comment below. On Spotify, I think you can comment, and on Apple. And if you're in a relationship and you're kind of been questioning the relationship, I want to hear from you. Put your questions down. Let's open up this conversation. Maybe there's going to be a part 2. I want to support all of us in having really healthy and conscious relationships, even going into 2025. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend or a family member who would love it too. And if you love it even more, I would adore you if you commented, rated, and reviewed on either Apple or Spotify. And for the month, this last week of December, I am going to give away a free card pull for those who send a review. All you have to do is screenshot your review, send it to my email, angelica@angelicarosenary.com, or send me a DM on Instagram, and I will give you a card pull. All right, everyone, enjoy this episode.